Here we're going to draw this hook, and you'll see that I've already created a part, WS-03-hook. I'm already in generative shape design. This is going to be primarily a swept surface problem. And now let's take a look at the geometry we need to create. Here's the geometry. And the first thing we're going to do is come over here to our shape, and we're going to right click, and we're going to insert a geometrical set. And we're going to call this Wireframe. This is going to be a bucket that I can create a lot of my supporting wireframe in. It'll keep my model nice and clean. Notice it's already my work object. So I will select, let's pick the YZ plane to draw this profile on. And let's go to Sketcher. Now that we're in Sketcher, the axis center is going to be right here, because that's the nice center for this inner circle. It's also the dimensions given for this little tip, and it's also the center line for the cap on top. So now let's draw this inner circle of radius 30 and then the outer circle of 70. Let's make sure our snap is turned on, and we will draw here, pick up the constraint, and this one is 30, that's the inner circle. Okay. And it's constrained fully now. Let's do the outer circle. Our snap is on. We're 10 by 10. So now let's do this one as 70. There we go. So both of those are correct. And then finally, let's draw this little circle up here. And that's a 5. So we'll come up here and we'll draw something about like so. And let's select this. Double click it. There we go. We'll make this a radius of 5. Okay. Now a lot of times I like my values here to match my values in my sketch. So what I'm going to do is select this diameter. Let's change it to a radius. Okay, and that's a radius of 30. We'll say OK. And then over here we'll do the same thing. We'll pull this in. Double click it. We'll change it to a radius. Okay. Now this bigger circle still needs to be, it's in the right position, but it's not constrained to be in the right position. So we'll select here and let's constrain it now to the origin. Let's constrain the center of the large circle to the origin. It's 10 by 10. So now we have those set. Now let's constrain this little tip, and it's 60 over and 20 up. So let's select the origin. There, this one is supposed to be 60. And the vertical height, look at there, I already got 20. So that's perfectly in position. Now we're going to jump up here and we're going to draw this cap. Let's draw this rectangle for the base of the cap. Go to our centered rectangle. It's going to be up at about 100. I'm going to make sure that I have the blue constraint for the axis picked up. And then we're going to do this about like so. Okay. The 40 is correct, but the height needs to be 10. And then let's constrain the height to the origin as 100. Okay. Now we're going to draw this rectangle up on top of the base rectangle. We'll come up here. Let's move this down out of the way. Let's make sure that we pick up our axis again by picking up that blue. And then let's come over here. Now we don't want to pick up anything else other than this horizontal top line. There we go. And the height is 30. And the width is supposed to be 40. Oh, no, this one is supposed to be 20. And it is 20. So that's perfect. Okay. And now we need one more little rectangle on the bottom, because down here at the bottom, these arcs come in and they have to have a little line to attach to. The easiest way to do that is to do another centered rectangle, pick up the blue axis, and then come in and pick this up. Now this is supposed to be out here probably somewhere about like so. There we go. And then now let's set the dimensions for that. The width, we got it close. It was supposed to be 36. It's 34. So 36. There we go. And the height doesn't matter, so I'm going to delete that right now. What we need this geometry for is to pull it down here. This is going to give us a little area that we can draw this arc in. So now let's start drawing that arc. Now one of the tricks to drawing the arc is, instead of using this 3-point arc command, we're going to actually put these in with the corner command. And we will select this supporting geometry. Let's select this circle. Oops. Come on, let's try that again. We'll select the corner command. We'll select here. We'll select here. And then this is a value of 40. And look, it trimmed it and put our tangencies up and everything. That's just quite nice. And then we'll take this end and we'll just drag it around here. It's going to have to be somewhere around here for the rest of it. Okay. Now let's put the corner in this piece here. Now let's delete this line here. We don't need that anymore. Let's drag this down a little bit. There we go. And now let's put a corner in. Let's select the corner command and then put this one. And this one has a value of about 80. There we go. Now when we trim that one, when we put that corner in, this one kind of trimmed back to this point, and it's not able to drag because of these coincidences that were created. So we're actually going to cheat a little bit. We'll come down here and we'll do the quick trim, or the trim command, and we'll trim it back around to this position right about here. Okay, and then now we can drag it now that we've kind of got it away from those coincidences. Okay. So now we're going to try to put a corner in here, but you'll see that in this case, picking a corner command, let's do an escape. There we go. Picking the corner command in here. Well, it's not really going to the right sides of this little circle, and so we'll turn that off, and let's try the corner command over here. And this one is a radius of 25 between here and here. That goes in just well. That's 25. And now in this case, this last one, we can't do our little cheat and use the corner command. We're actually going to have to do the 3-point arc. So we'll come in here. Now my snap's kind of getting in the way. I'm going to turn it off. And I'm going to come in over here. Now be careful that you don't pick up, like if I'm here, I'm picking up an additional constraint across, and I don't want to do that. I want to pick up just the circle. And I come down here and I want to make sure that I pick up just the circle. And now, as I do this, I want to set it. I'm going to hold the shift key down so I don't pick up any other constraints. Now, this one is supposed to be tangent to this circle. There we go. I have my tangency in. And this value is supposed to be 50. Okay. And then we put a tangency in here. Okay, there we go. Now a little bit of trimming and we'll be done. I'll double click my trim option and we'll come up here and we'll trim the circle to the arc, and then we will come down and we will trim the arc to the other arc, and that is pretty close to being done. We still have a couple of things to tidy up. Up here at the top, there's a lot of line on lines, and I don't really want this geometry anyways in here. So I'm going to select my quick trim, and I'm going to delete that line. In fact, I'm going to double click it, and I'm going to delete that one, and that one. Now we're kind of trimmed up nice, and I'll turn that quick trim off, and I am going to do a quick check analysis of my sketch, and sure enough, I have an implicit profile. It's all closed. Everything's looking good. Close it. And now I want to zoom in here, though, at this tip. This is a construction point, which is the center of that. I'm actually going to make it a real point. There you go. You'll see why in a little bit. Let's exit Sketcher. And this sketch is now in my wireframe bucket, and I'm going to change the name of this to be Master Wireframe. And I'm going to call it Dash Purple. I like to color code my sketches. There we go. And we'll say OK. So now we have our nice master wireframe ready to go. Now we're going to make, of course, for our sweep, I'm going to select the sweep command. For the sweep command, you actually need several things. Pull it out from behind here. There, it's hidden back there. You need a profile, and you need, we're going to do with 2 guide curves, so I'm going to need a profile and 2 guide curves, and eventually you'll see I'm going to need a spine. Okay, but I'm going to cancel that now. I'm going to go to Sketcher on this sketch plane here. Now it's not the master wireframe sketch. It's another sketch on that same sketch plane. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to steal some geometry from the master. I'm going to project this one, project this one, project this one, and finally project this one. Okay. Now I'm going to exit Sketcher, and I'm going to name, that's going to be one of my contour curves. So let's go ahead and name it properly. Let's call it, let's change it to blue, and let's call it Contour Dash Blue. Okay, great. Now let's go back into Sketcher on that same sketch plane, and let's do it again for the inner set of curves. So let's select this one. We'll do a project, this one, project, this one, project, and this one, and project. Okay. Now let's exit Sketcher. And this one is going to be called Profile or Contour Green. So we'll profile Contour Dash Green. And we'll come over to Graphic, and let's make this thing a nice bright green. It's going to make it easier when these things are color-coded to do your sweep. Okay. Now I'm going to draw my little profile up here, the circle. So I'm going to need to draw it up in this area. So I'm going to select my plane command. Let's pick this plane through that point. We'll say OK. Now that diameter is 34. So I'm going to go to Sketcher on this plane. Now it's right down the center already. So I simply need to make myself a circle of diameter 34, and it will be perfectly lined up. Okay. I'll exit Sketcher, and I'm going to call that Profile Dash Orange. Okay, so I'm going to make it orange. Okay, there we go. So now we're really starting to take shape. I'm going to do a little bit of cleanup right now. I'm going to hide all my absolute axes. They kind of clutter up the views. Okay, there we go. So now I have master geometry, and I have some supporting geometry for the sweep. Now, before I create the spine, I'm going to create a sweep and show you why we need the spine. Okay, and I'm going to take this off the screen here. Let's come back. Let's select my profile. Let's select a guide curve and a second guide curve, and let's do an OK. And you'll notice that we get a little warning that there was a problem with one of the limits. And if we come in here, we see that it didn't follow this second curve all the way because it's staying normal to this curve here. You'll see that the spine is defaulted as the guide curve 1. Well, let's change the spine to be guide curve 2. Oh, now the problem is just the opposite. Okay, so what we have to have is this circle, when it gets towards the end here, it needs to come out perpendicular to the line that would be between these two endpoints. So we're going to need a spine for it to follow, rather than having the spine be one of the end curves. So I'm going to delete that sweep, and let's go ahead and let's create a spine. Okay, so I'm going to hide both of my blue and my green contours. Okay. And now I'm going to go back and sketch another sketch for the spine. Here we go. And I'm going to use the same curves as the inner one. I'm going to select here, at least most of them. Here, here. Now this one I'm not going to use. But down here at this end, I'm going to select this curve to project in. And I'm going to turn it to construction. But notice where the endpoints are on it right here. Okay. Let's turn it to construction now. Now I'm going to hide the magenta curve. You can still see the yellow right there. I'm going to change my background. There you go. So now let's draw a line between here, here, make it construction. We'll draw another line between here and somewhere out here. Make it construction and put an angle on it. We said it needed to be perpendicular, so there's 90 degrees. Now for my spine, I want to make a connect curve between these two. That's a nice curve that's very easy to make. You pick towards the end of this line and towards the end of this arc, and it connects the two. And then when you tap out, there you go, you have your curve. Let's pull the master wireframe back, and let's turn my ambience back to white. Okay. Now, the green curve, I don't really like it because it's outside of the purple curve, and that's going to cause some buckling. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double-click it, and I'm going to change some of these tension values for the tangencies. So I'm going to lower this one to maybe 0.2, and I'm going to decrease this one here. See now how my curve is kind of following the inside here. Okay, and we'll say OK. So now what's going to happen is this spine is going to come along here. Everything's going to be fine until it's here. And then it's going to start following the spine. And when the circle comes in here, it's going to be exactly perpendicular. Okay, let me delete this one a little. There you go. Let's increase this a little. There you go. I think that's looking pretty good there. We'll say OK. So now let's get out of Sketcher. And this is going to be called our spine. And let's make that, say, a bright red. So let's get out of here. Let's call this our spine. Dash red. We'll come over here and we'll make that red. Okay, perfect. So now we have a lot of our supporting geometry. Let's clean it up a little while we're going along. Clean up these absolute axes. Everything's looking great. Now we're ready to try our sweep again. But before we do, I'm going to put another bucket to put the sweep in. So I'm going to right-click, Object, create a geometrical set, and I'm going to call this Surfaces. Okay. And for the surfaces now, I am going to, and now there are my work object. I'm going to go to Sweep, and I'm going to select my profile. Now I need Guide Curve 1. I'm going to pick, I got to pull the green and the blue back out. And I'm going to hide my, let me cancel this so that I can hide my master wireframe. There we go. Let's my blue back out, my green back out. There we go. So now I'm going to do my sweep. And I'll pick my profile. I'll pick contour 1 is the green, contour 2 is the blue, and I'll zoom in here and I'll pick my spine. Notice it's asking for my spine now. Pick this, and I'll say OK. And oh, look at that. It just worked perfectly. And it looks wonderful now down at the end. Okay? So now I'm going to bring my my master back out just so I can see that I'm looking good. Okay. And I have a little point here in the master. Okay. And that point is going to be used to make a sphere with. Okay. So I'm going to come down here and go to my surfacing commands, and let's see here, where we go. There we go. There's my sphere, and I'm going to pick my point, and the radius is going to be 5. We're going to make a complete sphere of a radius 5. Okay, great. And now we're going to do a trim between this sphere and this sweep. Okay, so we'll go to my trim command, and we will trim the sphere. Now notice the sphere can go to the inside, so there'll be like multiple opportunities for this. So it's not going to know which one. We're going to say OK. There we go. Let's see how the trim worked. Let's right-click Properties. Let's make it blue. And let's hide. Oh, did I get it? Oh, I didn't get the surface. Got the edges blue. There we go. There we go. So my trim looks very nice. Now we're ready to go to solids and finish it up, because we need to fill this in with a closed surface, and then we need to revolve the top as a shaft. Okay, so we're going to go right-click, define work object back on our part body, and we're going to go to part design now. Okay. Now in part design, we're going to do a closed surface here. So there's a closed surface icon. We'll select the trim. We'll say OK. And then we will hide our trim surface. Wow, that looks really good there. Okay. Now we need to steal some geometry to make this shaft with. So again, I'll go to Sketcher on the same sketch plane. And now I'm going to come up here and steal this geometry to use in for the shaft. So I'm going to select, project, select, project, select, project, select, project, and one more, this little one down here, select, project. That's enough. Now what I need to do is I want to trim them to this center line here. So I'm going to draw a line, make sure I pick up the axis, that blue, and I make it straight down. There you go. Now I didn't make it come all the way because I want to actually see it trim when I hit the trim command. Like here, when I select here and select trim, see, I can actually see it trim. And then I'm going to trim this one to this little piece here. Come on. There you go. So now we could see it trim all the way across. Okay. Now, when I was doing the trimming, it actually came away from the origin a little bit. So we want to put a dimension on to tie it back to that origin, a constraint of coincidence. Okay. And now the last thing we're going to need in this profile is an axis. So we'll select our axis command, and we'll draw an axis picking up the center line. There we go. So there's our axis. We have everything we need. We'll exit Sketcher. Okay. Now I'm going to hide my master profile. Okay. And I'm going to hide some of my contour curves. Okay. And I can hide my profile and my spine. And let's do a center tree. Let's hide some of these absolute axes. Now this sketch is the sketch for my shaft. So I'm gonna actually label it, since I've been labeling everything else, shaft. Okay. We'll pre-select our profile. We'll select our shaft command and say OK. And that's looking really great. Okay. Now we'll hide this plane, get it out of the way. Let's put our fillets on. So notice how well our tree is organized here. We have our wireframe all in this little wireframe bucket. I have my supporting surfaces here. And look at how small my part body is. It's simply a closed surface and one shaft. Now we're ready to put a fillet in here. Let's put the fillet in here. Now 5 is going to be too big, as you can see. So we have to have an edge to keep as this outer edge. And we'll say OK. And that looks good. Now we'll double click it and we'll add one more edge to the top. We don't need the edge to keep there because this one has plenty of room. Okay. I'm going to come up to my part body now. And you know what? Let's display our properties. Okay. Let's go to our part body and let's change the color for the part body to be this gray. And let's go into this edge fillet and let's change it. It's a 5 and we've color coded everything that's 5 to be blue. And then the last thing we need to do is we need to put a chamfer around the top edge there. So we'll select chamfer, and I believe that's supposed to be a 2 millimeter at 45 degrees. Okay. So then that chamfer, let's just make it let's make it a bright orange. Okay. There we go. And that is the entire hook design. And notice how simple the tree looks. We simply have just an edge fillet, a chamfer, and a shaft and a closed surface in the part body. And we have, the trick was we drew a master wireframe, a purple master wireframe that we used to steal all the rest of the geometry from. That brings us to the end of this demonstration.